everybody, and welcome to a really special episode of The View from the Top. Hi there to Ray Abbott from Vancouver, to Moez from New Jersey, to Nicole from Cleveland, people coming in from all over the world, Susan from Connecticut. So we've got an amazing talk to you today. We're going to be talking about, well, the future of global mobility. I mean, how important is that? How big is that? And we've got a really great panel to talk about the future of global mobility. We've got our resident immigration and tax experts. We've got Julie Onslow-Cole and Julie Barron. We've got our resident policy expert, Russ Haynie. But the really special guest today is you. We want you to jump on the stage. We're going open mic. Think of it as karaoke night at The View from the Top. Grab the microphone, come and join us backstage. We will be sharing the link shortly, and you can just click on the link and join us backstage, and then I'll bring you onto stage, a bit like a radio phone-in show, and you'll be coming on board. So it's going to be a great show. The great thing about talking about the future is that nobody knows what's happening. There's no right or wrong answers. So come in and share your thoughts and your views and your perspectives, the issues you see, the challenges you see, the opportunities you see, your excitement and indeed your fears for the future. And we're going to be talking about that live on air in just a few minutes. So as I said, we are open mic. So do remember, you can join us in the studio today for what is going to be an amazing afternoon. So anyway, that's what's coming up later. Now, I know a number of you, of course, do want to see the, do want to get your CPE credits. I'm going to put the CPE credits up there, so you can get your CPE credits, whether you want to get them from Worldwide ERC, and many thanks to our good friends at Worldwide ERC for sharing their CPE credits for GMS and CRP, or indeed whether you want to get your credits from HRCI. And again, many thanks to our good friends at Rocket Mortgage for getting us the HRCI and the SHRM credits. So if you want your credits, there. So that's this week. Next week, we've got another, I think, really exciting subject as well. Next week, we're going to be talking about something that hasn't been done that much before. We're going to be talking about fintech and global mobility. Now, I always take the view when I'm trying to think about technology is, what is it like in my real everyday life? And why isn't it like that in my mobility life? So, for example, in my everyday life, if I want to pay somebody, I go on my phone, I've got my banking app, I pay them, it gets through immediately, you know, within seconds if it's domestic and a bit longer if it's international. But if I do that with mobility, with relocation allowances, with expense management, with paying vendors, it takes much longer and it's much more inefficient. What can we do to use some of those fintech learnings and bring them into mobility? So we're going to be talking about that next week on The View from the Top, and it is going to be an amazing subject to talk about. But what else? Every week, of course, we like to share with you some breaking news, what's been going on in our wonderful industry. So let's have a look now at what has been going on in the world of global mobility in the last 7 days. Everybody who has been promoted, everybody who has moved job, and also there's just so many exciting jobs out there. I mean, it's great. So if you are looking then do, check out some of those jobs. If you can't find the link, then message us. We'll try and introduce you. Now, if you are looking to hire anybody and you're in the mobility space, then do shoot us across details and we'll try and promote your job opportunity next week or the week after on our show. And indeed, if you have moved or you've been promoted and you want to share with the industry your bit of good news, then again, let us know and we'll try and make sure we catch you in the video next week or in whichever week. Anyway, we're going to move on now. That's enough of the introduction. We're going to be talking about immigration. And we've got, of course, Julia Onslow-Cole for our regular immigration update. Now, everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's say a really good old-fashioned welcome onto the show to the one and only Julia Onslow-Cole.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Julia. Now, Julia, you never cease to amaze me. I'm going to tell the audience. Okay, so you hot-tailed it in the last few minutes before the show over Westminster Bridge because you've been speaking in the Houses of Parliament. So just tell us a bit about that and then let's move on to our update.
Oh, well, it sounds much grander than it was. It wasn't in the main chamber.
Yeah.
It was just in the House of Commons. But there was a new report launched for London just showing how important London is as a city and what more could be done to help businesses, particularly holding events in London. I think it's something like the Excel Centre that was sponsoring it actually support 37,500 jobs for events, and it's something like 40 billion. So it's really quite a big thing for London.
Okay, now you're moving north today. You're going to be talking a bit about Scotland, I understand.
Yeah, so I just
Scotland before.
Sorry, yeah.
You've never dealt with Scotland before separately, yeah.
No, we've never dealt with Scotland before. I just thought it was very interesting that they've just released this paper where they've outlined some proposals for a reform of the Scottish immigration system. And the headlines are that if Scotland voted to become independent, and obviously it hasn't voted that way yet, but if it did and Scotland became independent, the paper from the Scottish government basically says that they would maintain free movement between Scotland, UK and Ireland, but they would rejoin the EU and there would be free movement between Scotland and the rest of the EU. And then they've proposed a number of specific Scottish visas, which they said would really help them. So one is called a Live in Scotland visa, which is a new visa which gives people the right to live in Scotland with their families, but without employer sponsorship. And then the other one would be a place-based element. Oh, Alexander Hallows from Scotland, here we are. So place-based element, and they're supporting immigration in sort of rural and island communities. And then a Scottish connections visa, if you've been living in Scotland for 5 years or more, to get people back. So everything is really on the fact that, you know, Scotland does need people. It's very unlike the same demographics as the UK, as the rest of the UK. But in September, they did a voting intention poll and 53% of adults in Scotland said they would not support independence from the UK. And even if Scotland was allowed to be independent, and obviously that would be a huge thing, it would be quite difficult for them to just easily rejoin the EU. They'd have to apply and go through the normal pathway. So that's my little update on Scotland. And I just thought that was really quite interesting.
It is.
So yeah. Sorry.
You go ahead, Julia.
No, I've got a couple of updates on the UK as well, if I've got time. One is that there's sort of one really big update, two updates, but the first one is that the UK have introduced this scheme. It's called the Electronic Travel Authorization, and it's quite funny because the Home Office want us to call it ETA, but they keep forgetting that that's what they want everyone to call it, and call it ETA, but it's obviously not got great associations. So ETA, and the idea is that it's like a clearance, so that everybody will eventually need it, even if you're not a visa national. And the important thing is it came live today for Qatar. So this is the first country that's rolling in, Qatar. And so everyone from Qatar has to fill in one of these ETA online systems. It's £10, and it takes at the moment about 3 days to be processed, but it will be getting down to 30 minutes. The important thing for people to know is that for talking to the Home Office and, having a really frank conversation, if you do have people who forget to do it, I think they're going to take a fairly lenient approach at the beginning. So that's the first thing, not to worry too much if they forget to do it. And the second thing is that it doesn't automatically mean that just because you've got that, you can definitely get in the UK. You still have to prove that you're here and you're not going to stay. And then my final thing is just to say that UK visa costs have risen really high, 15 to 20% in a lot of applications from October. And we're moving towards a situation that to move one single person who has sort of no special features in terms of exemptions, it's about £10,000 now in terms of visa fees. So it's just really, the last thing I wanted to say is just be very mindful of the cost. And so be very careful about managing talent, because you just don't want to find that you've moved the wrong person and then you've wasted all that money.
Okay, and when do we think that the electronic travel authorization system will come in for other countries other than Qatar, for the rest of the world?
They're going to roll it out with the rest of the GCC from February, and then gradually over the year for the rest of the world.
Okay, and Anna's asking, this is similar to what ETIAS would be in the EU. And I think
yes, very good point. Yes, thank you. Great point.
Okay, so thank you for that, Julia. We're going to see you later, Julia, when we go on
Lovely.
to talk about the future of global mobility. What we're going to do now is we're going to bring on Julie Barron and indeed her colleague Dan from the Netherlands to be talking about an important Dutch update. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say thank you to Julie Onslow-Cole and welcome onto the stage Julie Barron and Dan Hadja.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm really good. Good to see you, Julie. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you, Brian.
So, Julie, tell us a bit about what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, today we're going to talk about some new legislation in the Netherlands that affects the wonderful 30% ruling. And Donna's going to give us some bad news on that front. Yeah.
No. We all love the 30% ruling. Don't tell me it's over. The party's over in the Netherlands. So tell us what's happening, Dan.
Yes, no, I can assure you, Brian, it's not ending yet, but there will be changes, or at least we expect that there will be changes. The Dutch Senate still has to vote on 2 amendments of the 30% ruling, so we only know for certain at the end of December. We do expect that these will come into effect as of 1 January 2024 and 1 January 2025. So it will be
2024. So that's just like months away. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very close now, and it will be having a significant impact, especially on individuals who start working in the Netherlands as of 1 January next year. The 30% ruling, in essence, the main benefit is that 30% of the employment income can be paid tax-free, as most of the attendees will know. As of 1 January 2024, this benefit will no longer be granted for the full maximum duration of 5 years of the 30% ruling, but it will be limited to only the first 20 months of the 30% ruling. After the first 20 months, for the second 20 months, the maximum tax-free percentage will only be 20%. And for the last 20 months of the 5-year period, it will only be 10%. In addition to that, as of 1 January 2025, individuals who hold the 30% ruling will no longer be exempt from paying taxes over almost all their savings and investments. Instead, they will be treated as any other Dutch tax resident and would have to report their worldwide assets here in the Netherlands and pay taxes over that. Luckily, as these are both considerable changes, there is transitional law proposed. For the first change from a 30% ruling to a 30-20-10% ruling, it will honor all existing 30% rulings. So for the full remaining duration, those employees will remain entitled to maximally 30% of their income tax-free. For the second amendment, the abolishment of the partial non-resident regime, as we call it in the Netherlands, so the exemption from paying taxes over personal assets, will apply as of 1 January 2027 instead of 1 January 2025. So for that group, there's still a bit of a waiting period for that change to apply. What is good to note is that last year another amendment was passed in the Netherlands as well, under which the 30% ruling in itself is capped, so the maximum benefit is limited. As of 1 January 2024, and we know for certain that that change will come into effect, the 30% ruling can only be applied over the first 233,000 euros of the employee's income. Above that, the standard Dutch tax rates apply. So it is quite a big change.
They're huge. How likely is it that these other changes are going to come in? Is it hypothetical? Or, I mean, if you were a betting man, I mean, would you say it's like so 90% certain or 10% certain?
Yeah, more than 90% certain. It is because it's part of the budget plans in the Netherlands, and the Dutch Senate only has the authority to either approve everything or to disapprove everything. And as these two measures are only part of a bigger package, it's likely that everything will be accepted by the Dutch Senate during the course of December. Yeah.
Okay. And one other question, just for my completing my education, I don't think I've ever come across tax rules that are in 20-month periods. Do you know why they did 20 months, not like sort of a year or 2 years? I mean, it seems very odd.
Or even 18 months, right?
Yeah. Why 20?
I think because the maximum duration of the 30% is 5 years. And if you want to have like a decrease in the percentage and you want to use 3 periods, you automatically end up with 20 months. But it is very arbitrary. I agree with you there.
That makes it harder on payroll and on the tax return preparer because it's going to always be a split year, right?
Exactly. So especially for payroll and the payroll teams of our clients will be having their hands full with this new change. Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you. Well, it's a bit sad actually. It feels like losing a friend if the 30% ruling is being sort of, well, you know, amputated in or I don't know what the right phrase is, but watered down or anyway. So it's, and I'm guessing that actually has an impact for anybody and also people wanting to work in the Netherlands. And I'm guessing there's quite a bit of lobby and heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we immediately saw after this was announced because it came as quite a surprise. It was very last minute. It was only announced last month, of October. It's already scheduled to apply as of the 1st of January. So that's a very short period. So now we see especially startup companies who use a lot of foreign talent, that they are writing in public or to the politicians to change their minds, they already have trouble attracting foreign talent as it is, and this change certainly doesn't help.
Okay, well, we're going to move on now. We're going to have a quick update on what's been going on in Beneva World with Matt Cheek, and then we're going to move on to our main discussion. If you're interested in coming backstage and joining us on stage, in fact, to talk about sharing your perspective of the future, then we'll be sharing the link in a moment. Then do click on the link and you can hop backstage. But before we do that, let me introduce Matt and also remind everybody that the top 100 list this year is the closing date is today, midnight tonight. So if you want to nominate some top 100 community champions, this is your very, very last chance. And if you don't know what it's about, let me just play that little video. So many thanks to you, Dan, and to you, Julie. And Julie, we'll see you later. And Dan, thank you for giving us that update on tax in the Netherlands. How
Hello,
are you
Brian.
doing? Hey,
I'm
good.
doing great.
Good to see you. And yeah, it's a big day today. It's the closing day for the top 100. So give us your update.
Well, that was number one, is that if you haven't done it yet, it's very important to put your submissions in. Everyone is very, whether they make it to the top list or not, usually the people who you nominate feel very good for having been in the running. It's a nice thing to do for your colleagues, so certainly encourage everyone to do that. And the updates that I had was just a couple of previews of Benevo out in the world. We have recently been out in the world a lot, having a really good time at the industry conferences. In particular, shout out to GME Live. Our team had a fantastic experience at that conference in London last week. So well done to Alex and the team there. We had a great experience. And we're doing a few more things as the year is turning the corner to coming to a close. Hey, Karen. Hello. And they are at the regional events in the US. So my colleague Mary Weaver can be found in two places coming up very shortly. The one, we are doing an event that's actually just a Benevo event in Chicago. So if you're in the Chicago area, please consider joining us for the Tech Connect breakfast. And if you're in Chicago, you can also go to the Chicago Relocation Council fall meeting. Mary is also going to be attending that. And then in moving a little bit west and south, if I have my geography correctly, my colleague Kara Butler is going to be attending two events, two of the regional ERC Council events, one in the greater Washington area on December 6th, and one at the Charlotte Metro Area Relocation Council on December 7th. So December 6th and 7th, you can find Kara at those two regional meetings. And that's it. That's what I have for you today.
Thank you so much, Matt. In fact, I know you're going to be with us again next week when we talk about fintech. So we'll see you again.
Right.
Then we're now going to start sharing the backstage link. So Tally's going to put that up. If you want to come backstage and join in the discussion, then just click on that link. We'll place that up a few times during the course of the show. But the link is now live. So without further ado, let's run the video. Let's get into the main discussion, the future of global mobility, with Julie Onslow-Cole, Julie Barron, Russ Haynie, and indeed you in the audience. So thank you so much, Matt. But everybody, hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's together discuss the future of global mobility.
Hi, Brian.
So we are now officially open mic. So if anybody wants to just hop on stage and join us, then just use the link that is going across the screen, but it's also hopefully in the LinkedIn comments, which might be easier because that's a hyperlink. And just go to benevo.com/open mic and come and join us. We are going to be talking about the future of global mobility. What does global mobility look like in, say, 10 years' time? How different is our world going to? Drew's saying he's so excited for the discussion. Well, Drew, jump on stage, join us. We are open. We've got Russ and we've got Julie and we've got Julia. But let me just start then. I'll start with you, if I may, Russ. How do you see mobility evolving over the next 10 years? Let's just take the big picture first, then we'll get into some of the specifics.
This industry, Brian, is set to evolve in huge ways that we only have to look to the recent past and all the technological innovations that we're seeing come forward. AI, predictive analytics, generative AI, so many things coming on board so quickly. And without a doubt, that's going to have huge influence on our industry, on the policies and benefits that we offer our transferring and assignee populations. So much to come. And I'm so excited to hear how our audience feels about all of these things. But without a doubt, technology is going to really push us in huge and different directions.
Okay, so we're going to try and go into these in various areas, but technology is one area that is going to change mobility over the next few years. What about other areas? What are the other areas? I mean, Julie, from your point of view, you're sitting there with a tax hat on. How's that world going to change over the next 10 years?
Well, it was interesting, Brian. I've been thinking about this, and I saw a statistic recently that said that in 2024, 40 of the world's largest countries, I'm always get these numbers wrong, but will have a major election. And it said 41% of the world's population will be voting in these elections. So, from a tax perspective, some of these elections could really swing the way countries are dealing with their tax policy, tax issues, and the way they're coming at some of that stuff. So 2024 will be a very interesting year, which could then shape the future for the next few years with these big elections that are coming up. So we'll see what happens, right? So that I think could change a lot of what we're going to see. And I mean, look at what we just talked about from the Netherlands. I think with that 30% ruling going away, that really is a hindrance for businesses wanting to go to the Netherlands and send expats there. So I know I have a couple clients who are already kind of hesitating on some of those things that, their employees, especially with the taxation of personal income in the Netherlands, just aren't as attractive. So it's interesting.
Well, let's just pick on that. Let's just riff on that for the moment, because at the moment there's certain countries where people flock to because they've got favourable tax regimes. I mean, Netherlands is one. I suppose Ireland might be another. There's various countries out there which are becoming headquarter locations, whether it's tax or indeed whether it's immigration. Which countries do we think might be the winners over the next, if we go out 10 years, say? Actually, I'll start with you, Julie, on this. Which countries do you think might be the winners over the next 10 years, where people might say, this is where I want my employees to be, or I want my corporate headquarters to be, or my regional headquarters to be?
Well, I mean, I know I'm slightly biased because I spend so much time there, but I do think that the Middle East is the place where people are really looking. I think if you look across the world geopolitically, the Middle East, is having, reasonable time generally, with economics. There's so much going on in Saudi. There's so much opportunity for businesses. There's the regional headquarters initiative in Saudi. I mean, I do think that, if you look globally, the economy in Europe's quite flat. So, I think that it is an exciting area. But really interestingly, there was a global turbulence report that was done very recently, and it started in 1861 of the American Civil War, and it went up to today. And it said that if you look from the American Civil War to today, and you take in the Great Depression, 2 world wars, the financial crisis in 2007 and 8, the last 3 years have been more volatile than any period before, on a volatility index. So it is quite incredible. If you put what Russ says and Julie about the technology impacts, then you look at the geopolitical impacts, it's a very difficult landscape.
Okay, and let's just see who we've got. We've got our first guest coming in. So let's welcome to the stage the wonderful Billy Ho, all the way from where you're on the West Coast, aren't you, Billy? Yeah. So Billy, tell us what's your view? We got Stinky Tofu here. Great show we did with you. For those, he's dead. For those who don't remember the show, Billy, introduce the cat.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We can hear you just fine.
Perfect. Stinky Tofu is always here. Whenever I put on my headphone, this is where he sleeps. He sleeps right on my arm. And he will move around.
Okay, so Billy, let's move the conversation on. Where do you think mobility is going to be? Forget 2024, 2025, 10 years time. So 2034. Where's mobility going to be?
I honestly predict, this is what my feeling is that we will be a lot more technological enabled in our mobility to really become part of the talent management function. Whereas anybody who have had some sort of mobile experience or anything that relates to mobile employee, instead of just looking at it as we're moving people, we're supporting them, but it's more about as part of a career achievement, so to speak, as part of a milestone, to have had that mobility experience that enabled them to continue to build well in their career. That's how I really foresee it.
Well, let's go out with that. Tally, can you just put a post out there on LinkedIn for us? Let's do a quick poll on LinkedIn. In 10 years' time, who do you think you or your replacement, whoever, the head of global mobility in your organization is going to be reporting to? Are you going to be reporting to the head of talent? Are you going to be reporting to what most people do at the moment, which is the head of reward or comp? Are you going to be reporting directly into the VPHR? Where else could you be? Are you going to be reporting into business travel? I don't know. I mean, where do you think your function is going to be reporting in 10 years' time? Let's just see what the audience says. And if you want to join the debate and join us on stage, then just hit that link that's out there. We'll put it out there again and just do what Billy did and just join us there on stage. Russ, you do a lot of policy work. What do you think the trend is? Do you think people are going to be moving away from reporting into reward and reporting into talent, or is there somewhere else they might be going?
Yeah, definitely. And Billy, it's so nice to have you join us in the studio, and especially it made my day to be joined by Stinky Tofu. So thank you for being here. I totally agree with your comments. I think that we are seeing that happening already. We talk a lot in our industry about having a seat at the table for our mobility professionals, and I think many have earned that seat. And oftentimes that is an integration with talent management. I think from a policy perspective, we're still a bit clumsy, I would say, in terms of how we transition from one assignment or deployment to another. We see weak spots with repatriation and with successive assignments. And I think as we move into the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot of hybridization of policy types, lots of compound assignments where you go out on assignment and from the beginning, you're already planning your next deployment. Part of the assignment itself is preparation for a successive assignment. And those are very complex scenarios to manage through, and we'll certainly be leveraging technology to enable optimized solutions. But I completely agree. I think that seat will likely be joined to the talent function in many organizations because it's all about attraction and retention of key talent.
Okay, so I mean, it's very interesting what you're saying there. So we might be working in different places. I've been seeing people saying we're reporting to different places. I saw somebody saying we're going to be reporting into risk. I mean, is that something? Do we think? Yeah, it's, who said that? Elizabeth Therese Wells was saying that. And I mean, we've got John backstage with us, but John, if I just ask you to turn your camera on, then we can bring you on stage. We can't we can't do it without your camera on, I'm afraid. If anybody else wants to come and join us on stage, then please do. Let me ask another question then. Whilst we've got you, I'm going to say something controversial, and I want you to sort of just shoot me down and tell me I'm wrong. I'm going to say we've passed peak global mobility. I'm going to say that peak global mobility was sometime pre-pandemic. And these days, with all the cost pressures and all the ability to work remotely, that actually absolute volumes of people moving will never be as big as it was, say, in 2019. Someone disagree with me and prove me wrong.
I think it depends how you define global mobility, but I mean, I think that the increase in business travel is substantial. I mean, we're already back at the levels that we were pre-pandemic, and it's just rising and rising. I think you're wrong, but it's in how you define global mobility. Yes, definitely, if you're talking about long-term assignments where you take, your whole family and you move for a long period of time. But I think, short periods, rotation workers, project work, business visits, I think that will push the numbers up.
Brian, something that makes me optimistic, and I'll challenge you a bit as well, is that I see a lot of data reporting on the preferences of younger generations in the workforce. And they're telling us that they highly value in-person work. And they're actually leading the way back into the office in many regards. And if you think about stage of life, and older workers have dependent children and perhaps dependent elders. They have much more competing priorities at home. So remote work is very attractive to them. But younger workers are really motivated for direct interaction with their peers, career growth opportunities. They want to be face-to-face with their peers and their clients. And so that makes me very optimistic that the demands of that end of our workforce are going to lead us back to a place where we are engaging a lot in global mobility. It's going to look different. I completely agree with Julia. It's going to be shorter term assignments, rotations, projects, but I don't think it's going away.
Okay, we're going to move, say goodbye to you in a moment, Billy, so we can let other people into the studio. But Billy, if I can just ask you, from your perspective, where do you think volumes are going to go over the next 10 years?
I think tapping on what Julia was saying, it really depends on how you define volume. As I really think in the future, anything that got to do with employee being mobile, that should be part of the volume, including something that we're handling right now is the employee requested move. I foresee that will become a natural competitive space to develop talent and to win talent and to really secure and retain talents. So with that said, I predict the volume will go up because of that, including business travels and everything.
Okay, so we're predicting volumes to go up, but maybe changed in the types of assignment. Let's get on that. We're going to say goodbye to Billy now. Billy, thank you for being such a sport. Great to see you. And let's see Stinky Tofu once again before you go. or she's gone already. We've lost the cat. Okay. Okay, you take care, Billy. Always good, always great to have you on the show. You take care. Okay, so we've freed up another space. If anybody would like to join us on stage, now's time. I'm seeing lots of comments in LinkedIn, but you're not coming on stage. So do come and join us. So we've been talking about volumes. Let's just talk about types. I'm going to make another controversial statement, and then you can sort of shoot me down or not. But let me take your perspective. And I'm going to call this statement the death of the balance sheet. Okay, let's go out. We've really seen a trend from, if you like, traditional, call them what you will, full fat tax equalized assignments to lump sum, to core flex, to, much more sort of, forget tax, you're on your own, or you pay your own tax, but we're not doing this tax equalization, keeping you as you were. Okay. In 10 years' time, Julie and her friends at Vialto Partners and you guys in corporate life are not going to be doing tax equalization. If somebody in 10 years' time, someone coming to the industry saying, what's hypo tax, they're going to be, what are you talking about? I mean, that was something that we did in the Stone Age. So here's my question. In 10 years' time, will we still be doing tax equalization? Or is that something that has also passed its sell-by date? Who wants to take that? You're the tax baron.
Yeah. So here's my opinion. I think that depends on the industry. I think I have a lot of clients who have big projects, right, where they need 150 people to go to a certain location and they need them to go, and maybe it's not a very glamorous location, but it has a high tax rate. They're going to have to equalize those people in order to get them on board and send them there. So I think we might have equalization in certain industries. I think other industries will see a lot less of that. And actually, we're already seeing that trend. But I don't know that equalization will die across the board. I think it may be industry specific. When you really need somebody physically in a location, and it's going to cost them money, I think you're going to have to equalize. So that's my opinion on that. You guys might have a different opinion, but I think that it depends on the industry. And we're seeing that already, where certain industries, everybody's going as a local, and certain industries, they're actually keeping to a lot of traditional expat benefits and traditional equalization just because of the need to get people there.
Yeah, and Trish McDonald, let's just pull that one up. Trish McDonald, she said, yes, we're talking about tax equalization here for skilled workers and key talent. Okay, do we think so? We think that's going to be the case. Russ, what's your perspective? Do we think there's any chance that tax equalization will be gone in 10 years?
I think it remains on life support, just as it is today. And I agree with Julie. I think that industry plays a lot into it, but I also would say it's about the motivation for the mobility opportunity. Is that, where is it on the continuum between a developmental opportunity versus a business-driven opportunity? We see a lot of employee-initiated moves for those developmental opportunities, and that's driving a lot of the move toward localized packages that don't offer those kind of rich, generous compensation supplements. So, yeah, I think there's a corner of the industry that will continue to provide it, and even within some companies, I think that there are business-driven assignments of a critical nature that will require tax equalization to motivate the right talent to go. But I don't, I do disagree with you ultimately, Brian. I don't think it will die completely. I think it'll stay on life support.
I must say, I don't necessarily agree with me. I'm putting these statements out there to provoke debate and to be controversial and to get people think. I'm going to come out with another controversial statement. I'm in that sort of mood at the moment of having fun and sort of saying things that's going to get the audience thinking. And we've been talking a lot about technology. Obviously, from a Benevo perspective, technology is in our blood. But when we do talk about tech, we've been talking about some stuff, people sometimes say, well, will I still have a job? Okay, so let's put that out there. In 10 years' time, and maybe we'll start with you, Julie, on this, will people still have jobs in global mobility? And if so, and hopefully the answer to that is yes, but if so, how will their jobs have changed? Let's start, Julie, maybe you start from maybe an immigration perspective, looking at people who are immigration practitioners, and then we'll broaden it out. Will a company like Fragment have as many people, or will it be doing something different in some ways?
Well, I think he'll definitely be doing something different. I think that technology is not just going to change the way in which we process visas, but it's going to change the way in which we move through borders. I mean, a few years ago, when you explained to people that, likely there would be, a sort of virtual border where you'll just move through and people will just take your biometrics and your data as you move, that all seemed such a joke. And now that's actually happening. So, I think it'll be more about the data, analyzing the data. And that's what at Fragment we're moving into anyway. We have amazing data in terms of, data on every aspect of immigration and mobility. And it's about analyzing that data, helping clients to understand better for talent management what's going on and what they're how they benchmark against people in the industry. And it's about advice to governments, the sort of work that I do, which is advisory work. I think that will sort of continue because you're basically advising governments on the very latest thing that they can do to attract and retain talent through their immigration law and policy. But the idea that you will be, doing transactional visa applications, I think is definitely won't be there.
Okay, we've got a very shy audience out there. Actually, lots of people are commenting on LinkedIn, but they're not clicking the link, the banner to come live and join us in the studio. We would love
Diana Claridge. Ask Diana Claridge. I've been messaging Diana.
I saw Michael Cadden's been commenting. Trish McDonald's been commenting a lot. Come and join us on who else is Merrily's been joining. Alexander.
Yeah, ask Merrily.
Yeah, we're very friendly. So So Julie, from your point of view, let's take it from a Vialto point of view. You've got loads of people bashing out tax returns. Are they still going to be doing that in 10 years' time?
So I think that we will be able to use technology to do less of the input, and we'll be able to gather data better. right now, a lot of what we're doing is gathering data and making it complete. But I see our job as evolving into some risk management and dealing more with, okay, here's your risks. And this is where, when you're moving people across borders, you might be incurring a risk. So, obviously remote workers are a risk and some of the business travelers are a risk. So I see a lot of our jobs as kind of evolving into, this is where we're seeing risks, and we can use that data for that, right? We can really use companies' data to see where this is where we see that being. So I see that as a bigger part of our role in the future. So not doing the compliance after the fact, but getting ahead of it a little more.
Absolutely. Who's come to join us? Hang on, we have. Oh, I'm so delighted.
Oh, lovely. Karen, yay.
For the stage. You grab the mic like a true professional. So
it's nice to see you, Karen.
Hey, good to see everyone. I wasn't planning to join today, so but I decided to jump in because the conversation's so interesting.
So tell us, Karen, what's your perspective? How's mobility going to change your? How's the future going to change your role?
Well, technology. Russ hit on it right at the top. Right, it's going to change everything that we do. But I think one of the things that hasn't been discussed yet is governments are going to have a lot more access to the data, and they're going to be able to make the linkages between entry, immigration, and tax. We've already had one instance of that happening here in my current program, and where the immigration authorities from a smaller country called us to say, we found out one of your employees is getting on a plane while his work permit's still processing. Why is he coming in, et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of technology link, both from the tax and immigration side, as well as maybe with airlines, other kind of travel resources, is going to happen, which just increases the compliance threshold that we all have to, and the risk management that we need to be considering as we go forward.
Absolutely. And I mean, are we all optimistic about the future, or are we scared about the future?
I think change is, harder for some people than others. Personally, I'm excited about it. It's hard sometimes, the uncertainty of not knowing. We know AI is going to massively transform how we do the work. Exactly what that means, we don't know the details yet, and that can be a little unnerving, I think, at times. But this business has been here long before I was born, and I'm sure it'll be here long after I'm gone. So I think it's exciting, and I'm glad to see new people coming into the industry and how they're going to help us transform and create the next version of what we do.
Okay, let's move the conversation on. We're into our last, 10 minutes of the show. We've talked a bit about how compliance might change. We've talked a bit about policies. We've talked a bit about our own jobs. Let's talk about our industry and our suppliers. Do we think, another controversial statement, do we think there's going to be consolidation in our industry or diversification in our industry? What do we think is going to happen to all the big providers in our industry and indeed the boutiques? Is everybody still going to be here in 10 years? What's happening in our industry?
Based on the conversations I was hearing in Boston at ERC, I think expectations are going towards consolidation. That, currently we had the big spike last year with coming off COVID, but for traditional RMCs and some of the other providers in our space, the volume is down this year pretty noticeably. And I think, long term, people are questioning what makes the most sense. The models, obviously, there's a lot of things at play here, technology enhancements and what kind of work gets streamlined. So I don't know. That was the word on the street, just passing along what I was hearing.
Certainly short term. I mean, I'm hearing people saying that volumes are down 30% or so year on year. Seems to be the figure that I'm hearing people throwing out. But at the same time, costs are going up. There's inflation is rampant. The costs of certain raw materials are going up. There's still supply chain problems. That's short term. The question, I suppose, is slightly longer term. Do we think that that there is going to be some level of consolidation? Actually, I've got a question for you, Julie. I'm going to ask this one of you, because I mean, you've just had or Vialto have just had their first anniversary a while ago. Maybe it was a few months ago or so. You had your first anniversary, and you took a really bold step. You guys span out of PwC, and and touch wood for you guys, it seems to have gone pretty successfully. So many congrats on that. But my question is this, and I'll ask everybody, but obviously you're the obvious person to start with, Julie. Do you think the others will follow you? Do you think we're going to see Deloitte, EY, KPMG, or indeed some of the others doing something similar and having other Vialtos?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Brian. Obviously, EY tried to split in two, right? And that got nixed, and it just didn't work out, and that was a huge expense for them. So I think they're probably a little bit gun shy now about doing anything, just because they went through that, and then when it wasn't successful, they had to pull back. But I do think, I think that other firms may spin off who their mobility practice, at least, if not some more of their consulting arms and some more of the things that they do. Obviously, what it's done for us is really free us up, from all of the independence restrictions that you have sitting in a big four firm. So, yeah.
So you guys would never go back, presumably, is what you're saying.
No.
There would not be a situation where.
Well, I'll never say never, right? Never say never.
And I'm not asking you. I know it's above all our pay grade, so I'm not going to get into that. But what I'm saying is that the direction of travel is one way.
Exactly. I don't see us going back.
Yeah. I mean, Julia, you're with an independent immigration firm, and you were previously with a big four firm. Do you see that trend continuing of splitting out away from audit?
I'm not sure, but I do agree with all the comments coming through about there'll be some consolidation with the RMCs. I think that's definitely for sure.
Absolutely, and we're seeing that. I mean, I think some people said there's going to be 3 large RMCs. We won't go into who those 3 might be. That's not the sort of debate we want to have today, but we are saying there might be a level of consolidation. But also, I think there'll always be a role for boutiques. I remember hearing an M&A saying many years ago, which was go large, go niche, or go bust. And I think the hardest will be the people playing in the middle ground, who are sort of not the big boys and don't have a specific niche, and that niche could be a sector niche or some other niche. But so, I think maybe we'll see something going on there. I mean, Russ, from your perspective, let's just move on back to technology, because obviously that's a key driver in all this. How do you think technology is going to impact what we all do? In fact, do we even need RMCs in a tech world?
Yeah, well, I do believe we need that higher touch experience, and I agree with you too that I think there's a place for the boutique kind of specialized niche players in our industry as well. I think technology is going to create corners of our industry and players in our industry we can't even imagine yet, and that's so exciting. I think. For all of us, we have to get our data house in order. I mean, if you are still not operating under a single source of truth for your data, if you're still patching together data on spreadsheets, now is the time to get that in order, because everything that you'll be able to avail yourself of in the future in terms of enhancements on benefit delivery, employee experience, all of that, your ability to leverage predictive analytics, sentiment analysis, a lot of the things you hear us talk about on the show is all dependent on having that single source of truth in data. So I think that's a key aspect for policies, for program management in general. So definitely getting your data house in order. I think that the reason I say, and the reason I agree about the boutique statement and the niche players, is because just look at the trending toward how diversified our workforce is and how much companies are striving to meet those diversified needs. I'm seeing policies moving in the direction of accommodating a huge range of experience opportunities, and that demands niche players, those that can come in with specialized services, with very differentiated services. So I think there's a need for both. There's always going to be the need for hand-holding through the process, intensive counseling, and those boutique players. So I think it's both.
Okay, Karen, we're going to say goodbye to you. I need to free up the space so somebody else can come on board. So, Karen, it's been wonderful having you on the show and wishing you all the best. So if somebody else would like to, I cut her off a bit too soon. I do apologize, Karen. If anybody else would like to join us for the last few minutes, we've got that. I'm going to take a comment that Merrily put in, and I don't know whether Merrily can join us, but I'm just going to take her comment. Here we go. Merrily said, it's gone. Merrily said, it's estimated that 75% of the workforce will be millennials and they want to have work experience abroad. So companies will have to get creative, as mobility assignments may not be for the select few anymore, but for a broader workforce. I mean, that's a really positive thing from our perspective. It's sounding like actually there's going to be a lot more, because the youngsters and millennials, I suppose, won't even be that young shortly. But the youngsters will really want to have more global experience. I mean, Julia, is that your perspective on it?
Yes, I really think that experience is what people crave, and I think that that's very important to them. And I think that, providing that experience and the global element to it, will be very important, and is very important now. And you can see that when you have lots of round tables, it's not just a UK thing, it's a truly global thing. And we had some HR roundtables in Riyadh a few weeks ago, and all the employers in Riyadh saying the same, that people just craving for experience and the quality of the work that they're given and the experience that they gain doing that work, and also the opportunity for some travel. They're all key issues for them.
Okay, so, and what's Drew said here? So Drew said, he said, sorry, that wasn't the comment I wanted to pull up, but let's pull up the next comment here. Agree with Merrily, both the new gen and the overall the workforce will demand mobility experience. So I think, and we're getting to our last minutes, I'll start drawing this to a close, I think if I can sum up this conversation, I think there's actually quite a lot of positivity out there, that what we're saying is, yes, there's going to be consolidation in our industry, but that's going to be offset by lots of boutiques coming in. Tech is radically going to change the way that we do our work. But it's going to be enhanced. I mean, we're going to see a lot more, especially younger people early in their careers moving. I think we're going to see a lot more sort of volume of travel. We may see a bit less of some of the traditional stuff. We may see a little bit less in terms of tax equalization calculations. We're going to see a state, or lots of states, that are more all-seeing, all-knowing. So compliance is going to be more of I think, a challenge, as people can't necessarily game the system, that the state knows where they're going, when they're going, and immigration and tax might be tied together. So it's a very, very interesting time. Thank you to everybody in the audience who has taken part. It's been a fantastic live discussion, and particularly big thanks to those who joined us on stage, to Karen Hale and to Billy Ho in particular, and those of you, I know a number of people were sort of watching and multitasking, so they're taking very active part in the debate but couldn't actually join us on stage. We get all that. And I think maybe that's another thing we're going to see more and more as we go forward, is more multitasking. The idea of just doing a job at one time, I think that's probably already for the birds, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more multitasking going on. Anyway, that's it. That's the end of the week. I'm just going to bring our wonderful producer Tally back onto the show to say thank you for incredible work that she's been doing backstage, managing this really technically quite challenging episode of The View from the Top. Going open mic is always a little bit more challenging than normal. It's been a great show. We are back next week, when we're going to be talking about fintech and global mobility. And trust me, if you don't know how fintech works with global mobility, you will not want to miss next week's show. It's absolutely fascinating, the sort of stuff we're going to be talking about. Anyway, our hour is up. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Julia Onslow-Cole, to Julie Barron, to Dan Haja from Vialta in the Netherlands, who's telling us all about the 30% ruling, to our own Russ Haynie and to Tally Gorin, and of course to you, the audience. Thank you very much, everybody. And we are again back next week. Take care and have a great week, everyone.